you very much for coming, Chris. I'm so happy to have you in my podcast. And it's really a huge pleasure because I know I met you a few years ago and you were running Coach and Connect. There was a few webinars for TCI that was really interesting. And I saw your transformation and actually your journey last few years. And I'm so happy I have you in my podcast because I want to ask you so many questions. And I will start probably with you if you can just tell us something more about yourself. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure to be on the show. Yeah, so we met quite a while back when I was first getting into the coaching scene, and and it was very exciting as most coaches get into personal development. They start realizing they can create a business around their passion. I too discovered that I could really follow my passion and my dream into doing and creating whatever I wanted to do. So, yeah, I've been coaching and training now for a bit over 5 years. And it's been the most incredible, rapid period of growth of my life that has allowed me to live my dream and really uncover and explore what I was born to do, which is to help others transform and to really tap into the deeper dimensions of what life is really about. So yeah, it's you and I, we both geek out on transformation and coaching and personal development as well as business. So I think for me, that's my real passion, is realizing that there is a science to transformation. There is a real science behind what some people would call spirituality and personal development, and really making that pragmatic and tangible and bringing that together with business owners so that they can experience the best of both worlds in terms of business success and personal success. So that's my real passion and sweet spot.
Yeah, I can still hear a little bit of engineering there and business. And it's so funny because I'm same, like I will always try to go to the business side, but on the other hand, it's like, no, I really enjoy transformation. And it's really huge because you have a lot of people, I believe, a lot of clients, they are actually coming from the business background or they have business. And at the end, instead of helping them in business, you start to probably transform their life or their thinking first. Yeah, is that true?
Yeah, I would say the core theme that unites probably most of the clients that I work with is that on a deeper level, I would say not just my clients, but I would say every human, they know that they're more than just a physical person. They know that there's something deeper to life, whether you want to call that life purpose, whether you want to call that spirituality, whether you want to call that just being connected to something that's really special about what we're here to experience in life, where we're all seeking fundamentally the same thing, which is a deep level of connection and fulfillment and meaning and purpose in life. So really when it gets deep down to what people are really seeking, it goes
Yeah.
beyond just money. It goes beyond status. It goes beyond the worldly creation of business and just manifesting things, and it goes to a deeper spiritual nature. And I use that word spiritual. Some people don't like that word,
I know.
but I like to use that word because I just think life is a spiritual journey. Like it is. It's we are human beings having a spiritual experience, whether people have come to realize or not. That's the nature of what this journey is about. It's about emotion. It's about feeling connected to life. And so, yeah, I work with a lot of business owners who are wanting to get more connected to the good stuff
Yeah.
beyond just the tangible.
I absolutely agree. I think connection is so important, and especially for business owners, they are working most of the time pretty lonely. Like they are alone in their business if they don't have business partners or big team. I mean, can be quite lonely journey, and I guess we are more seeking connections when we are not connected. On that like 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day with our colleagues. But I'm probably curious more about when that change happen, like when you realize that you're looking for more, because I know at the beginning I met you as a business owner, a business coach. You were starting to work with a few big brands. I know you coach the teams, and you kind of say like, no, I just kind of don't enjoy that much that. Like, do you remember when that change happened? What happened? Like how?
Yeah, well, I started focusing a lot on business, and I think the reason why I focused on business a lot was because at the time I really thought that financial success was what was important, And don't get me wrong, I mean, it's still important, but I think back then I was driven a lot by my ego. I was driven a lot by very surface level, very shallow needs. And, you know, I work with some great businesses. I work with, you know, I work with Mercedes-Benz, you know, working with their team in Melbourne, you know, doing corporate trainings and all that sort of thing, which was great. Like it was really good fun and I really enjoyed it. But I think deep down, once I went through that journey, I realized that the most important thing was working with clients that I really had a deep, special connection with. Like I got to the end of some of these trainings and it was great, but I got a sense that a lot of the people that I was working with in these training rooms, they didn't really want to be there. Like they were, I was training to people that were kind of showing up a little bit, but deep down they were, you know, they really didn't want to be there. So I wanted to work with clients that I felt a real connection to, that I could really get excited and inspired to work with. So that's when it started to shift. I started to realize that you know, no amount of money, you couldn't pay me any amount of money to constantly keep working in an area that I wasn't passionate about. And so, yeah, I used to be an engineer. I worked in an industry for the best part of
Yeah.
nearly 10 years. And I got paid quite well to do something that was, you know, it was reasonably interesting, but it wasn't my passion. And so I'd been down that path of knowing what it's like to get paid pretty well to do something that I really wasn't that passionate about. And I could see that the red flashing light on the dashboard of my mind was starting to flash again. And I realized it started to go a little bit out of alignment again. I'd started chasing the dollars and the status, and my ego is now driving my car instead of my true self, my
Yeah.
spirit. So that's what I started to realize. And then I started to course correct and say, yeah, who do I really want to work with? Like, what do I really care about? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it makes sense when you think about that, when you hired by corporate or someone, you know, like boss or leader, and now you have to coach the team. They're like, oh, you know, another training, you know, another thing that we have to do. Sometimes it's like that, because I noticed that like some people really, like you said, they don't want to be there really. Like they part of that. They learn something, but they don't put themselves out there like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do and I want to grow. And I think people that are employed, sometimes they don't have that urge to grow, you know, like internally, or skills, or they're just comfortable and they're having their monthly or fortnightly salary. And I guess that's the difference probably with the clients. Yeah, I can see that. And I was actually, I was interested in that because I saw in your podcast or somewhere in your videos, you said you coach out of the engineering, like you coach yourself out of engineering. And I was just curious, like, is that start of your coaching journey when you like coach yourself to get out of that engineering?
Yeah, that was the start of my journey. So, you know,
Okay.
I woke up pretty much every day from the first day that I started studying engineering back when I was 18 years old. I knew on the first day that that wasn't something that was in alignment with me.
Yeah.
But, you know, I forced myself into it. My ego and my sense of pride forced me through sheer perseverance and just willpower. I forced myself
I'll
into
with
that
you.
industry. Yeah. And I know you can relate. And there's a lot of people that are listening that will be able to relate to just how powerful we can be when we force ourselves. But I would say the difference is now I don't have to force myself to do what I'm doing. In fact, I'm
Yeah.
inspired. I'm I'm magnetized and pulled towards what I'm doing rather than needing to force it. So the game has changed. Instead of me trying to like rev my engine really hard, it's almost literally like I'm coasting downhill and accelerating without even trying. So that's the
I
difference I
love
would
that.
describe when you're in alignment and when you're following, you know, your true calling or, you know, inner guidance. Yeah, things are a lot easier than
Yeah.
when we're pushing and hustling. So yeah, I coached myself out of engineering because I realized that I was out of alignment. But for a lot of my career, I didn't realize that there was any other options. So I just
Yeah.
thought, well, isn't this just how it's meant to be? Like, you know, you get a degree, you get a job. It's not meant to be that enjoyable. It's not really passionate. You know, jobs are not meant to be enjoyable. You just
Yeah.
do a job
That's
because, you know,
social
because
structure.
yeah, you just get the job, you know, you just do your
Yeah.
job, work the 9 to 5, you get paid. You know, that's just a thing that you do to earn a living to then start living after you finish work. And then I realized, oh, there's if I really have mastered life, well, I'm not going to make any distinction between work and play. It's all going to merge into one, and I'm going to really follow my passions, and I'm really going to live life to the full, blending everything that I love and what I'm
Yeah.
good at and play. I'm going to mix it all together, and that's what that's what I feel like I've managed to do now.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I absolutely understand because I always had that question because my father was always like, you need to do and study economics because they're money, like economics, like money. And it's like, I don't really want to do it. I want to study psychology. And he was like, that was actually the time because I'm pretty old now. That means that was the time when psychology and coaches, it didn't really exist, that was not really like some corporate manager will hire you. It was just so different. It was more about like psychologists didn't have money. And my dad was like, no, you can't do that. And I was exactly forcing myself to do stuff that I wasn't really passionate about. And it's interesting when you said that that we actually can wake up in the morning and have fun and actually enjoy the day. Because yesterday, someone from my group asked me that, like, oh, you're working so much and so hard. I said, no, that's not true. It's like, I'm working a lot, but it's fun. Like, I want to do it. If I don't want to do it, I will stop and probably get some job, and I will be employee. But it's just so interesting how that changed. And I love when you're talking about that, as I can see, like you were so happy and smiling and laughing because it's amazing to wake up and be motivated. And I think that's important. And I know you changed, you moved, you are now you're in Hobart, I guess, still.
Yeah, now I'm in
Yeah.
Hobart. I was living in Bali up until the beginning of this year,
Yeah,
and sort of,
that's what I want
yeah.
to ask. Like, why Bali? Because I know you started to move around, and yeah, you choose Bali. Why Bali?
Yeah, well, I just had clear inner guidance that that was the place to be. So I just felt called. I felt magnetized towards that place. So
Yeah,
I've been to Bali before quite a few times, and there are different elements in Bali. There's the main touristy areas, which some people might have experienced, which
oh,
Bali
yeah.
might not seem that impressive.
I don't.
There are other parts of Bali that are really quite magical. I guess you would say very traditional Bali and really special. And
Yeah,
so I lived in Ubud when I was
yeah,
back in
Lapoput.
Bali. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
where we ran a retreat when I was running retreats back in 2016 and 17 in with my old business partner. So yeah, I ran a retreat in Bali, and I just realized that place was quite special. There's like you arrive in Bali and you get to Ubud, and there's an amazing feeling, and
yeah.
it's just a feeling. There's just something about the place, and I just knew that on some level I was probably going to go back there one day. And yeah, last year the time felt right to go back, so I literally packed up my business in Australia, and it didn't make any logical sense. Like there was no logic to it.
I know
And
that happened.
people were asking me why are you moving to essentially a third world country where you've got a really successful business in Australia? And I thought I don't really have a logical answer for that, but all I do is I'm trusting my intuition.
It
There's
is well.
guidance saying that there's something there. So that's what I've been trusting more and more, is not needing to intellectualize things, but just trust the wisdom that's flowing through me in the moment, even when it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I love that what you say. Actually, I think that will be something that maybe we can a little bit deep dive because it's so important that now in this reality where we live, or when we have to have house, we have to have a car, we have to have money. The best we have to have two incomes when we are family, and all that is actually. I felt I met a lot of friends that are kind of stuck, and it was in Europe or here, in Australia or anywhere in the world basically, and they just kind of stuck and they're like, oh, I really want to be like you, like moving around, moving the countries, and probably people say same thing to you, but they always so scared. And I guess that's probably something I believe you can coach people to, like to really understand there is nothing that should take you and stick you in the one place and stay there because of that excuses. I don't know how you call it, like how you help people with that.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that's a classic problem that most people have,
Yeah.
is they are stuck inside uh, the conditioned belief systems that they grew up in. And so, they will have a limited worldview about what's possible for their career or their life or their
Yeah.
relationship. They might think, oh, well, someone might think, well, I'm too old to start a new career.
Oh yeah,
I'm
I
too old to move, or, these kinds of things.
have.
And it's all innocent. limited thinking. That's all it is. It's just people are stuck inside limited thinking. So very quickly, as soon as I mean, you and I are both coaches, so we know very quickly how to spot the limitations in someone's thinking. So as soon as someone says I can't, well, usually that's a lie. um,
Classic.
it's more like, well, you can if you do certain things, and if you're willing, if you're prepared, and if you're fundamentally, if you're just open-minded, and if you've got a level of emotional resilience, well, you can attempt and you can do anything, you can create anything. So it's never a matter of if, it's just a matter of how. And so a lot of people are not willing to go through
Yeah.
the having the willingness to do what is required to create the life that they want. And it's easy to make excuses, and most people will say, oh, I can't do that, or I'm not good enough for that. And it's very rarely true. It'll just be, well, no, you can do it, and you can become good enough to do that. It's just a matter of figuring it out, and it's just a matter of wanting it, and it's a matter of surrounding yourself with a support network, or getting a coach, or getting support, or reaching out, asking for help. So yeah, what it really leads to is, if you're wanting to be the master of your life, well, sometimes what you've got to be is really vulnerable and humble to acknowledge that you don't know how to do that, and just seek help, because there is thousands of people that exist in this world whose life's mission and whose greatest skill set is solving your life's biggest problem.
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful thing that I love in this world, is there is not a problem that you can think of that is not solvable by someone in this world. Like every problem that could ever exist is solvable by someone right now. There's 7 billion humans on the planet. We've got some really powerful problem solving ability. So that's really inspiring when I think of that humanity's
Yeah.
capacity to evolve. Is we got everything we need when people get over themselves and just are willing to ask for help, and are willing to to put themselves to be humble, and to allow themselves to realize, yeah, I can be helped. I can be helped
Yeah.
here.
I
Yeah.
love that. That's really nice way of viewing things, like there's actually really like 7 billion people and we can solve any problem. I think that's amazing message. And yeah, I would like to probably go, because I know you're successful in your business, and probably for a lot of people, maybe consultants and coaches, this will be something that will want to know, because I know the first year too is always about like how to make money, because I want to stay in that industry, because I know it's pretty hard journey for a lot of coaches, and it's a lot of obstacles, and especially when they are in the transition of the careers. But if you can probably talk about like money wise, because I know money at the end, we all know they're not that important. They're great. Like we still want to have freedom to move and support us and family, but it's more in the life. But how to kind of make that first year or two and make that money? Do you have any tricks or tips, or what you will suggest to coaches?
Yeah, I would say there's two parts to this conversation. The first part is being okay with money.
Yeah.
Where like you could literally be bankrupt, you could have $1 billion, you could be somewhere in the middle. Like getting to the point where it doesn't play an emotional role in your life. Like
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's the first success in life, is moving beyond money meaning anything about your worthiness, whether it, not determining your happiness. I'd say that's the first, I would say, realization,
Yeah.
is learning that money is just a concept. It's just a thing. It's useful and it's helpful. And obviously it helps pay the bills and it helps buy things. But really creating a level of emotional mastery around money is the very first step that's required for anyone.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you reach that benchmark of being okay with money, which is just a mindset game, what happens is it basically devalues any of the problems around money. Now, what I mean by that is, if you can devalue your whole sense of significance of money, it means that you can just get on with living your life and just create more money without needing to worry about it to drive you to get money. So, for example, a lot of
Yeah.
people use their insecurity about money to try and create more of it, as
Yeah.
opposed to being okay with money regardless of how much of it you have, and then just allowing yourself to just go after living the life that you want, and then just accumulate however much money makes sense to you. So it doesn't become the reason for pursuing it. It just becomes icing on the cake. So I'd say that's the first
Yeah.
step. And then the second step sort of is more of the pragmatic approach to, okay, great. If we wanted to have money, which is, I highly recommend it, we're living in an economy where you physically need currency to buy things. Well, it's very useful. It's quite handy to have money because it's, just great to be able to buy things.
Yeah.
And so that would be the more logistical side of running a business, which is, okay, great. You need to understand how to generate leads. You need to understand how to convert leads. You need to understand how to deliver programs. You need how to understand your pricing. So that just becomes the very, the thing that you figure out on the coaching journey of just creating consistent revenue,
Yeah.
understanding how to create clients, understanding how to re-enroll clients, and just understanding the nature of business. So that's more of the mechanical understanding that's really important.
Yeah.
If I had the understanding that I had now when I first started, instead of taking, it probably took me probably a year or two before I was able to really replace my income. If I could know what I now know, it'd probably happen like in half the time or a lot quicker. So understanding the nature of business, that's a really important
Yeah.
educational piece for coaches and business owners.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think it's exactly what you said. I believe that attachment to money are causing us usually emotions. And I don't know if you agree, but that's exactly like that emotion when the emotions or negative emotions with money, like we don't have, it's hard to get them, it's hard to earn them. I don't know how to do it. And maybe I feel, I don't know, less self-confidence and all that game. I guess it's taking so much energy from us, and our thinking is so different, because I believe that's influencing even your decisions when you think about, like, oh, should I do that or that? Or you choose probably the wrong thing, or wrong, you may make wrong decision because you're driven by that emotion, to earn more or have more. And I believe that's just crazy. It's just chasing.
Yeah, and that's one of the big challenges
Yeah.
around being successful in life is removing the uncomfortable emotions from most things. Like you look at most decisions, whether it be whether for a big one for a lot of people would be ending a relationship would be this really really big ordeal.
Yeah.
Investing in a house is a really big deal. Like there's all these big decisions that we think is this real big emotional. It's like an emotional event. I believe with the highest level of emotional intelligence, what happens is we start to actually see through the physical experience, and instead of our feelings feeling like they're coming from outside of us and feeling like our feelings of security are coming from our bank account, we start to see the illusion. We start to see, my feeling of happiness is not coming from the number of digits in my bank
Yeah.
account. Like that's not where my feeling of happiness is coming from. My happiness is coming from the quality of my thinking. My happiness is coming from the degree of understanding of my life. So as soon
Yeah.
as we understand ourselves, and as soon as we understand the link between thought and feeling and consciousness, and understanding the nature of how we actually operate, we start to be masterful of our emotions, and we now are no longer driven by fear as much, and we start to be driven more by our inner guidance and our intuition.
Yeah, that's so important that we are not driven by fear. I absolutely agree. I think that's the big thing that a lot of people are actually driven by. Yeah, I would like to ask about because you're teaching psychospiritual principles, and if you would like to mention that, because I think it's so important, maybe just kind of give overview to people, like what you're teaching, and what is that first step probably in that mastery of the life or mastery of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned psycho-spiritual principles. So for a lot of people, they won't know what that means. And when I first heard psycho-spiritual principles, I
It's
kind of
like, oh
thought,
no.
yeah, this sounds a bit different. What's this all about? But it's really simple. A psycho-spiritual principles, they are simply the true nature of life. So psycho-spiritual principles are basically the way that we create our psychological experience is simply a mixture of three fundamental truths that occur before the human even exists. And so these psycho-spiritual principles, which is also known as the three principles, were a model of reality, a model of our psychological reality that was uncovered by a man named Sydney Banks. and Sid Banks was a welder, and he was an uneducated Scottish man who literally had an enlightenment experience back in the 70s. And he stumbled across these three principles. And these three principles are the three words that I'll use, but they're just words until you understand them. But the three words that we use to describe these psycho-spiritual principles are universal mind, universal consciousness, and universal thought. And these are the three ingredients. These are the three elements that mix together to create all of our psychological experience. So there is no experience that anyone can have that doesn't involve these three elements. So these are like, if you think of almost like quantum physics, the smallest elements, if you like, that exist inside the psychological experience are these three components mixed together. And when we understand these three components, we understand all the other compounds that get formulated. So it's almost like the atoms would be the fundamental building blocks of life, and then atoms form molecules, and then molecules form different hydrocarbons and all the different elements in life. So these three principles become like the most foundational understanding for how we create our life. So these they're like spiritual facts. And so I'll go into it a little bit more, but basically these three principles,
okay.
they really underpin the true nature of what's actually going on at the core of our psychological experience. And when you understand them, and we can perhaps go into a little bit of a conversation about them, but when you understand them, we can dance with life. We can dance with our experience because we understand how we're creating our experience. So it's like we become masterful. It's like we truly understand the nature of ourselves and the nature of what is this thing that we call life, and why do I experience these emotions, and why do I have these beliefs, and why do I have these thoughts? And so it really explains the nature of what's actually going on.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that is helping to increase self-awareness. I think that's the first step to understand yourself or anything else. And I have to say, because I had really great experience actually in your course, like I'm doing Chris training, and I was just listening, and I was really, pragmatic brain. Probably a lot of people now, when they're listening, they have majority of people, they are business people, they have pragmatic brain, and they are straight away like, oh, this spiritual, I don't understand that. That's not for me. And I was fighting, and that feelings of frustration, and I was like, I don't understand. I remember I was actually so frustrated. And there was one day when I was listening again, all videos, and try to understand the principles. That's why I'm just saying that to people, they are part of this conversation. They're listening to us. Don't worry, you can understand probably what we're talking about, but it's all fine, because one day you will. And I couldn't get it. And I was saying I didn't understand. And that one day came. And that one day when that happened, I was just crying. And from that day, I'm always crying, because I'm having this emotional experience. And it looks like realizations are coming around, like from everything, like what I see. Sometimes I just see the birds. Sometimes I walk or I meet people, and it feels like everything is making sense. Finally, it's like, yeah, this is it. Like I'm here now. This is the time. And yeah, it just, maybe I should stop, because that will go to woo-woo a little bit.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But it's just so good. And I think it's amazing also to see people in the course, and in the group having conversations, and how the conversations is lifting all the time. And it's deeper and it's different. And I guess that's something we can talk probably another 2 or 3 hours. I know you don't have a lot of time, but it's amazing. Like Chris is running a Genesis program and a few different programs, and I think it's definitely worth it to attend or be part of that. But I will ask you, because I know that was a few things. We will go a little bit to the business. That was the thing that you mentioned, that for successful business, actually, you just need successful or good relationships. And probably I want to ask about that. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, for me, success in business is, I mean, you've got to ask the question, well, what is success in business? And it's essentially being of service. Yeah, it's being of service. It's adding value to people. It's solving problems. And the best way that I know how, in my 36 years of life, to help someone solve a problem is through connection, is through having a level of quality in a relationship where there is no limitations on what can be expressed. And so, yeah, as a coach, that's one of the most important things that I experience on a daily basis is connection and a level of intimacy and honesty and making someone feel comfortable with talking about anything. So for me, business is really about high quality relationships to the point where there is nothing that can't be expressed in that space of a relationship. And in that space, when you create that quality of relationship, what becomes available and possible is unlimited. And that's not just in a sense of selling products, but this is also collaborating. This is joint ventures. This is partnerships. This is referrals. This is, I call it networking for life. It's, it's like what we're doing right now, where, we're chatting in this interview and there's no expectations about where this goes or what happens. It's just being in the moment, connecting and trusting that, when you build enough high quality relationships, life will take care of us.
Yeah.
And that's just a trust that I have in relationships. So for me, it really is it's not a strategy. It's not like I'm great. I need to go out and create 1,000 high quality relationships and then I'll have this amount of money.
That would be hard.
It's more of a case of, I want to create great quality relationships because that's just good business. That's just a great way to live. And now that I've realized that the biggest thing that was preventing me from growing my business was my insecurity about connecting with people. As soon as I got over my insecurities, I'm able to just create great relationships with people with no expectations. It's not like I'm trying to gain anything from it. I'm just connecting with people just because it's just a great thing to do. And naturally, as a consequence from that, you create business relationships, you create value, you create opportunities, you create deals, you create clients, you create all of that. Not because you're trying to create it, but because you're just connecting and you're just finding the opportunities in life to be of service and to find where the alignment is. And it just happens naturally. So it's not a thing that you go out and for me now personally, it's not a thing that I'm trying to do. It's just something that occurs naturally to me. It's just something that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like when you reached out and said, great, do you want to chat? I'm like, yeah, that's like, Alex is a great human. I'd love to connect with her. It's be a wonderful experience. No idea what will happen from it, but it seems trusting the intuition and trusting the guidance of like, yeah, that sounds like a great thing to do. And then just follow the golden thread, as one of my mentors used to tell me, follow the golden thread, follow the feeling, follow just life is guiding us from moment to moment. So that's what I think relationships and business is how the success is correlated there.
Yeah. I love what you said, because I think it's a lot about intuition and exactly feelings. Because I struggled a little bit at the beginning in Western Australia. Maybe that's another question. Like, do you find Western Australia or Bali easier to find actually great connections? Because that was for me, like I struggle here, didn't struggle in Thailand or in Europe, but it probably was me as well. Like, that's the mirror. Like, let's look at me, look at myself, how I was. And I found that I'm using more intuition, and also same thing, like I didn't know I'm going to invite you, I was like, yeah, actually I want to have you because that's amazing what I'm experiencing in your course and with your teachings. And I think people should hear that. And I started to be guided probably by things like they just come to my mind, like, yeah, this is a good idea, let's do it. And I love that. But what is for you better? Like, did you find any difference in Western Australia or Bali to create relationships or find people?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I definitely resonate with what you were sharing about it being more about us than about the area that we're in. I think Bali is very different than Perth. So I think Bali is a hotspot for people that are generally seeking more opportunities. Bali is a bit of a mecca for people that are on a bit more of a conscious journey. They're more looking to create and explore and go down the path of creation. So that it's very much people that are seeking more. They're very much seeking, I guess you might call it, a spiritual path. The people that are seeking creating something. They're all about creating something that's more in alignment with themselves.
Yeah.
And so there's a very high concentration of people that are looking to tap into really special, deep, profound things. Perth, you can also find the same kind of people there, but they're more spread out. So there's,
Probably that.
it's not like Perth doesn't have that there. It's just that it's more of a diverse, I'd say it's more diluted. And so it requires probably a little bit more effort, probably requires a little bit more curation of community. Whereas in
Yeah.
Bali, you'd land there and you're right in the middle of the
And you're in
community.
the middle.
You walk into a cafe and there's probably 20 other digital nomads or business owners that are all like, wanting to
I
create,
love that.
they're wanting to create the next cryptocurrency or the next, the next Amazon or the next Spotify or there's just, that's just what Bali attracts energetically.
Yeah.
So that's just what I've noticed is the difference between the two.
Yeah, I'm so into that now. I was listening and I was going back in my life because that was exactly what I wanted. But like that's why I first moved to Thailand, because I always wanted to live in Bali, but it was probably too small. Wasn't sure. I didn't have enough experience because I was traveling that only once. And I moved to Thailand. That was the first decision. And Thailand is that's funny. It's how different it is. Is a lot of people like you were saying as well. Like they try to invent something, but it's more like a sport. And I was just crazy about Muay Thai and trainings, and it was just more like a sporty people and pretty high achievers. Like there were a lot of well-known athletes there. But when I was going to Bali, and I was like trying to find how I can work in Bali and in Perth same time. And I just took myself on a journey. I was like, I have friends there, Balinesians, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm going to, try to work with the hotels and everyone. And he took me on a travels with him. He picked me up in the morning. We just went basically make research around Bali. And I was there alone, and it was so amazing. Just on breakfast, I met so many people in that small hotel or that area. They were talking about their like freedom and traveling and working and developing, and that was exactly what I was attracted to. I was like, oh, I just feel finally so like whole and connected, and I was there alone, and I felt so great. And this is what I'm probably seeking in Perth, because people are too busy to probably just sit down and kind of like working in that spiritual environment. Maybe because Bali is a little bit spiritual. When you're in Ubud, it's all green mountains and ocean together. I don't know, I'm just still looking for those kind of people in Western Australia, because like I can't find them. That's why I was so connected.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I was certainly yearning for that level of connection as well in Perth as well while I was there. And yeah, it was difficult for me as well to create that level of community. I mean, I find that I started to attract more of those people towards the last few years when I was particularly following, a lot of the personal development type of, educational curriculums. I met a lot of people on that journey. And just started to naturally attract more of those people. So they are there, but it just requires a little bit more effort and energy. But I totally know what you mean.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that, and I can't wait to be in Bali, and I can't wait to be able to travel again and just take myself for a few weeks somewhere. Because I really like to be alone and work on the business and actually creating things. And I believe that will happen when you were in Bali. Like you just create this Genesis program and started to do something different. And I think that's just perfect space for that. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that can accelerate the journey by a matter of years by putting
yeah,
yourself in proximity to other people and in a space. I think it's identifying what is the space that we can get the most out of ourselves in. There are certain environments that we operate better in, and for
yeah,
me, I personally know, Bali is an environment that I thrive in. Like I thrive there, and that doesn't mean that I can't thrive anywhere else, but it just means that the conditions there kind of seem like they're perfect. The weather, the lifestyle, the food, the people. For me, that's the sweet spot. For me, that's a
yeah.
real sweet spot.
I'm absolutely the same. Like for me, Thailand and Bali, there are two things that I know I can just live there, stay there forever, and just create. Just sometimes go into like a real world, just be a little bit busy, and just go back again. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool. Okay, I know
absolutely.
I'm really aware of your time. That means I will probably just ask you, maybe last thing, when you think about that, like what you would like to spread, to the world and tell people something that should be aware of, or maybe where they can start this kind of journey. Anything what you feel like you want to give away?
Yeah, I would say the key to what, from what I understand now about life, the probably the most important thing that I've discovered about life is that our experience of life, um, it's it's more to do with our understanding of ourselves and understanding about the nature of what's going on in life. That's what is going to determine our quality of life. It's going to be our understanding of life, not the things that we do in the outside world. So that would be that's my hot tip for people that are looking for a higher quality of life. Is it might seem counterintuitive, but it's less about doing and it's less about achievement. It's less about going and creating things, and it's more about just being comfortable with ourselves and understanding ourselves. Because when we understand ourselves and when we understand life, and particularly when we understand the three principles, the psycho-spiritual principles, we move beyond feeling like we need to do things to feel better, and
Yeah.
we can just understand ourselves to feel better. And so that is the ultimate shortcut
Yeah.
to to a rich life, realizing that the richness of our life can be cultivated and curated 100% internally within us, without us needing to go out and do things in order to create that feeling. So it's a very empowering realization when we realize where our feelings and where our experience is coming from. And when we realize that and understand it, life gets easier, gets more joyful, gets richer. And all of a sudden there's less of a need to go out and do things to try and feel better. And we can just naturally feel better. And so it's a beautiful, rich way of living.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, because I definitely took your advice before, and definitely absolutely agree. That's just first thing, to feel great with ourselves and calm down a little bit, and don't do things all the time to escape from something. I would say, yeah. Thank you very much, Chris. It was really pleasure, and I would love to talk another few hours, but I hope I will be able to invite you again to my podcast and maybe talk about another topics and help people to understand a little bit deeper, maybe principles, and increase their self-awareness and start their own spiritual journey. Thank
Yeah, thank you,
you.
Alex. I'd love to. That'd be great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much.